we'll just get starting with the formal entry of this seminar. So from me, dear all, a very warm welcome to this session on doing business virtually. We have speakers with impressive success stories to tell, and I'll let them introduce themselves. I would also very much welcome comments and questions in the conversation from all of you participating, so please use the chat for that. My name is Bleie Munkelien, and I'm heading Innovation Norway's East Africa office. We're located in Nairobi, Kenya, where we're also the commercial section of the Norwegian embassy. Our mission, for those of you who don't know us, is foremost to help Norwegian companies succeed in East Africa. And we, give market advice and insights, support on matters of business ethics, support and research on details of imports, exports, partner search, these type of things. And with the COVID-19 situation, we can also be your boots on the ground, so to speak, being a physical representative for a company in business meetings, for example. But I'm sure we'll get back to that later on in the conversation. But now I would very much like to turn to Andreas Olsen from Unacast. And Andreas, why don't you start with telling a bit about your story and what Unacast do?
Thank you, Eli. Very nice to be here. Pleasure to be in the panel with such great people like Eric and Eli. So my name is Andreas. As Eli said, I was actually born in Madagascar, and I lived there until I was 6 before I moved to Norway. So I call myself an African Norwegian. I am an engineer from an engineering school in Norway called NTNU, and then after that I started working for a large media tech company called the Schibsted Media Group. And then after that I worked for an early stage investment company called Newmark Capital. And this was actually when I heard about Unacast for the first time, because Unacast is one of the leading portfolio companies of Newmark. And so I followed Unacast for quite some time, and I was very, very intrigued with their journey and their mission. And so when an opportunity came in Unacast in last year, 2019, for a position to head up their platform operations, I definitely said yes. So shortly speaking, what Unacast does is that we are a company that enables other companies to really leverage on their own location data, so that they can leverage on that out into the market and help people take better decisions around, for example, infrastructure analytics, around urban development, around transportation lines. So taking into consideration how people move and interact with the physical world to support decision-making around how to cope with all of these aspects that I mentioned. So this is extremely interesting, and it's especially interesting in a continent such as Africa, in my view, where, as we heard in the last session, there is a deficit in terms of infrastructure. And if we're going to build that infrastructure in the years to come, it will be good to support those decisions based on real data and based on safe data, which takes care of people's privacies. So this is why I'm here today, to talk about how we have entered into the African market together with one of the largest telcos in the world, MTN, and how we have done this in an environment where we haven't been able to meet them face to face.
Yeah, I think your business, your line of business is spot on what they need, particularly here in Africa. So we'll get, dig into that aspect, as you say, more in details later on. And I know that you have a very interesting story to tell regarding the challenge many companies face at the moment, how to close a business deal without having a physical meeting. But let's get back to that in a minute. We have one more panelist in the session, Eric Osiakwan. You have 20 years of experience within business development and investment, spanning across more than 30 countries in Africa. Not easy to tell your story in a few minutes, I'm sure, but why don't you give it a try?
Yeah, and my story is a little bit sort of the opposite. It's sort of diagonal to Andreas' story. So he came from the investing world and became an operator. Now he's running the company as operations. I went the other way. So I was an entrepreneur and I built a bunch of businesses. And then now I'm kind of trying to become an investor. So I'm learning now the act of investing. So we kind of have a sort of a tangential career. So mine started more as a network engineer, and I helped build a couple of internet businesses, mostly ISPs in a few African countries. And then over time, I also then went into building submarine cables, subsea cables. So we built the first one in East Africa called Teams in Kenya, where you are, Ellie, together in a partnership with the government there in 07, 08. And that sort of opened the floodgate for a lot of subsea cables to come on a continent. And then once that was built, I realized that there was a new generation of entrepreneurs that were layering on top of that infrastructure. So I started by just being an advisor. I didn't plan to be an investor. And then one thing led to the other. And then I started dipping into my pocket, and I've been doing that till now. So I currently operate under Chanzo Capital, which is sort of our investment firm based out of Mauritius. We have an office in Accra, Nairobi, and Johannesburg. There are three other partners. Ian, who's our operating partner, sit out of Accra. He does all the heavy lifting. Then there is Musi, who's a finance partner, sits in Johannesburg. And then there's Sewu, who is a venture partner out of Nairobi. And then I kind of do the running around. And we also have a back office in Mauritius, and then we have a team of 2 in Accra. And I operate in all the offices. We've done so far 16 investments on the fund side. We've had 4 strikeouts. We got 4 profitable, 4 break-even, and 4 early revenue. So we have this 4x4 track record. During COVID, we've had the most interesting privilege of being able to keep these companies afloat in a very tough terrain. And I guess we'll explore how we managed to do that, and learning on the job as we went.
For sure, we'll be digging into that as well. And also, it would be very interesting to hear how you pick new companies, because picking the right company to invest in takes definitely more than just looking at numbers. And I would like to also hear more about how you changed your business model or processes. Have they changed? But first, let's jump back to you, Andreas. So Unacast managed to close a deal with MTN without having one single meeting in person. And we heard from the previous session as well that you really have to be on the ground, but you have proved this wrong. So could you describe what happened, the process, and also maybe say a few words about MTN for those who don't know much about that company?
Yeah, thank you, Eli. So MTN is one of the largest telcos in the world, and it is the largest telecom company in Africa, and in my view, the most exciting one. And so they are present in a lot of African countries. I think they are now up to 19 markets in MTN, around 250 million mobile subscribers. And the country that we are now doing a pilot in with MTN is Nigeria, where they have 65 million mobile subscribers. And so this is quite a big deal. And the way that we got in the door was fortunately that we had a person in our network that knew people within the MTN network. And I do think that is a very, very important prerequisite for succeeding in what we're doing here. Because the red line here in my message is how to build trust, and also how to build trust when you cannot meet people. And it's definitely that since we had one person that could basically say that these guys are very good at what they're doing, you should meet, that was a very important prerequisite. And then we met with people at MTN Group, and we had several iterations with them, explaining very carefully, patiently what the Unacast does and how we could help MTN turn raw, chaotic location data into privacy-friendly human mobility insights, which they again could take out to the market and sell as valuable insights to public officials and companies that need it. So we needed to take that journey very, very patiently with them. And then after a lot of meetings, we then got in contact with the perfect person within MTN Group, which is a very, very talented woman called Anu Singh, which is the executive for business intelligence at MTN. And she then further introduced us to the different opcos, or the different companies, subsidiaries of MTN Group. And this is how we got in contact with the team from Nigeria. And then you had to do the whole thing all over again, right? Take the small patient steps and also figure out how can you use your network and your partners and also even your clients as ways to build that trust over time. And then this is how we did it. And eventually, of course, something hit the world, which is COVID-19. And based on that, we elaborated, we found a good pilot that we could do together where we could use that insight, that data, to help MTN help their country in coping with COVID-19. So we have built a dashboard where we see how people are moving before COVID and after COVID, and to kind of see how that change in average mobility affects the number of cases in Nigeria and in the different states of Nigeria. And this is fantastic insights that where MTN Nigeria actually can be part of saving lives and be part of helping the country in a very good way. So that's how the journey was.
That's a true wow story from one end to another. And timing, I mean, were you lucky or?
Yeah, you're definitely touching an important point here. As I said to you before we started here, it's not like this is how you succeed kind of a story. It's more our journey, and we were of course maybe a bit lucky that it was a good timing. But eventually, I think that we would be able to build that amount of trust so that we would be able to do some things. But of course, you need to, as Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? I'm not saying it was a good thing, because it's a horrible thing, but we need to do whatever we can to really help how we can.
And you had all your meetings, building trust, digital meetings.
Yes.
That was basically it, yeah. So
it was several, probably up to 100, maybe even 150 altogether, digital meetings with probably around 30 people in the MTN system, just telling the same story all over again to different departments and building that trust. But we also have to have in mind that we also used our partners for what it's worth. So we have partnerships with McKinsey, we have partnerships with Google, and we also were lucky enough to get one of our clients, a very respectable telco in Europe called Telia, to kind of share their experience in working with Unacast and how we together have built a system where a telco can safely turn raw data into human mobility insights.
Cool. Well, Eric, your business processes are very different, right? So how have you managed to consider new investments or follow up current investments? Any lessons learned from you?
Well, we had a bit of a heads up, but we didn't realize that we were actually being given a heads up about COVID. And that had to do with, so we have 3 offices. And last year, when the year ended, we did an assessment of, our resources. And we realized that we were spending about 50% of our time with our portfolio companies and not in the physical office. So beginning of this year, we had actually made a decision to be doing a 3-day office week. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday, we go to the office. So we don't do the office on Thursdays and Fridays. And that turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So we had actually started practicing working from home before COVID hit. So we were kind of somehow giving a heads up and ready, So come March, when, the borders were shut, it was easy for us to, hunker down. Actually, I was in Johannesburg when I heard the news that, our president was going to lock down our country, Ghana's borders. And I was on the last flight that got in. Immediately I got in, they shut the door. So it was a kind of a bit of a timely decision, but it was easy for us to just go to, working from home. And so that was sort of the first move that was easy. Then the hard part of it is working from home and supporting, all these 12 companies in 6 different countries. Then the hard work starts, right? And the hard work had 3 elements to it. So in our portfolio, we have 12 companies that are spread between what we call mobility businesses, virtualized businesses, and then semi-virtualized businesses. In other words, the businesses that need people to be mobile, for it to be work, and then we have businesses that have people to be virtual like this, so like eCampus, which is an online learning platform. Or what with eCampus trying to do is get people online to learn instead of, going to school. Well, not instead of, in addition to going to physical classrooms, right? And then you have a company like Hotel Online, which is the Norwegian founders based in Kenya, which is travel tech company. It needs people to be traveling for it to work. So COVID hits. Our revenues in that company went down to 20% the following month in March. Yeah. Our revenue just went like that. People were just canceling bookings, and it was just like crazy, right? So then there are businesses like Haptel, which is sort of an e-commerce delivery platform that's kind of sits between, right? You need some level of mobility. So people buy stuff online. It's, e-commerce, people buy stuff, and then somebody has to deliver it to them, right? So it's kind of semi-virtualized. So first of all, the most important thing was that we had to kind of very quickly segment our companies into these 3 categories, which actually we hadn't intentionally done. But with COVID, we started realizing that, actually, this is the kind of thing that we had built in our portfolio. Then we started thinking about how do we support, because these 3 types of business, you support the 3 of them differently. They're all going through a crisis, but the way you support them is pretty different. So, for example, Hotel Online, we ended up coming up with a totally new business line from what we were doing before. Because all those revenues dry. There's nothing you can do. People don't book hotels no more. People are not traveling. So really, you have to just look for a new business line, right? And luckily, we engaged heavily with the founding team, the other board members, and after sort of I want to give a lot of credit to Andreas, who's the CEO. He actually came up with the idea of a totally new business line that had always been there, but we hadn't paid attention to it. So we kicked in that business line, and in the following month, our revenue went back. In April, our revenue stabilized. Apart from the new business line, the second thing we did, which everybody does, is you cut the unnecessary fat in the business, right, to leave only the muscle. So we trimmed down extremely. We had to let some people go, which is tough, that kind of stuff. So we cut out a lot of the fat, and then we left the muscle. And then we had this new business line, which we kicked in April. And then, so in April, with kicking the new business line, the business then came to break even. Then in May, we became profitable. In June, we then started the process of acquiring 2 of our competitors who were going under. So in June, we acquired 1 company. In July, we acquired a second company. So under the crisis, Hotel Online moved from almost going bankrupt with revenues at 20% in March to actually by July acquiring 2 companies, 2 of each competitors that was going under, to being profitable in August, right? And the reason I give this example is an example of, almost a miracle, right? But it speaks to the fact that we have been doing something that sort of became pretty relevant without we realizing that. In other words, we had a pretty strong team. We have created a structure where we could really move from an existing business line to a different business line, which is pretty hard to do for any business, especially even when there's no crisis, right? Then you have a crisis, right? So I think, and this is why, I was going to say that a lot of credit goes to Andreas, who's the CEO. And so I think the part of it that you need to have a CEO who understands deeply the business that you're in, understand the sectors, and begin to think very differently about what could be a different line of approach when something is not working. And then supported by, investors and board members like myself, Tori, who's based in Oslo, Jan, and all the other guys, including one of our board members is Shri, he's based in Dubai. So all of us put our heads together. And I think that, that helped in getting the business onto the new business line and getting into this sort of high road again.
Cool. That's great. No, I got a bit of echo, but it disappeared. That's good. But Andreas, you talked about building a trust through using networks and your network and other players as well that have a really good, important reputation, large companies, and a lot of video meetings. But Eric, on your side, you have to build trust as well. I mean, the African culture is trust and meeting and relationships are very important. So how did you cope from your home office, building trust into acquiring 2 new companies, for example, and restructuring those you had?
Correct. So what really worked for us is that we had already built trust. So in this, during the COVID time, I've actually been involved in starting a new business, which I can talk about later on. But that business, I've known the founders and the team before, and we had been talking about it, and we started in the COVID, so that's a different story. But in all the cases, we had already built trust. And this is a fundamental part of our operating model at Chanzo. We believe that when you invest in the early stage, you invest in the entrepreneurs. And so it's important to have a trust relationship. And that's why we have 3 offices. People say, Eric, you have a very expensive operating structure. You're always flying. I'm always in Norway. This also hotel online deal, we actually announced it at the last but one NABA conference. Actually, that's when I spoke. I think I spoke there 3 years ago. That's when I met Andreas again. And then we did a merger of our company that we had invested in. And hotel online, right? But I've known Andreas for probably 18 years, right? So one of my modus operandi is I invest in relationships, and this is a very important ethos for the firm as well. So we spend quite a bit of time getting to know the people we work with, getting to know the entrepreneurs, spending time with them where they are. So when COVID hit, now they see us on the screen, we are the same people, right? So in a manner of speaking, we didn't build trust under COVID. We had already built trust. And so now working virtually was seamless. As a matter of fact, some of the sessions, it was almost like we were sitting next to them because we know each other, we've hanged out. So it wasn't that we're trying to do anything new. So I would say that, we didn't have that challenge. But the second side of your question is, how do you now build trust if you want to invest in new companies, right? Because the reality is that this is going to be the new normal until we have therapeutics and we have vaccines and, so at least that's the next year or 2, right? And this is this is a question that we are trying to answer within the firm. We've had business opportunities, deals that have come to us under COVID that we review at our partners meetings. Actually, there's one that we're really excited about and we may advance on it. But the question we ask ourselves is that we haven't met these entrepreneurs. And yet, we're going to make a decision to invest in them, right? So I wouldn't say that we have an answer yet to that question because we haven't done it yet. But we are very clear in our mind that this is going to be the new normal, right? So we need to establish a framework for making this work. One of the things that we're experimenting with this year is also around our Angel Fair Africa event. So we do an event every year called Angel Fair Africa. And basically, it's an event where we select about 10 to 20 entrepreneurs. We invite about 40 to 50 investors, and then we go to a city. So this year we're supposed to go to Dakar, Senegal, but we're going to do it virtually. And one of the experiments we're doing in this event is that the entrepreneurs who are in Senegal will have a physical, they will be together. And then if the other entrepreneurs in, say, South Africa, I think we have 2 from South Africa, we have 2 from Kenya, we have 2 from Ghana, and then they are going to be together, and then we all get on a virtual conference. Same way we're going to get investors. So if they're investors from Senegal, they will be in the same room with the Senegalese guys. If they are investors from Ghana, they will be in the same room. So that's the experiment we're trying to do. We'll see whether it works. If it works, then we can come up with sort of some form of a semi-virtualized way of doing deals. In which case, then if I want to invest in a company in Senegal, for example, I will then tag team with the Senegalese investors. Or I'll get a Senegalese investor to say, look, what do you think about this company? Or you know him, you were there at the event, or you spent some time with him, or even if you're not there, can you do some diligence on this guy for me, right? So we think that that is going to be probably one way that people work, is that you're going to using referencing as a way to build trust. So referencing through somebody who is physically there, that can give you some form of physical opinion about the business that you're trying to invest in. Yes, you can do some of the due diligence virtually. Look at documents. You can, these days you can do most things online. You can check their credit record, the background, all that stuff. But you still need some form of physical validation, right? So one of the options is that, this kind of referencing thing may become very relevant.
But do you think, Eric, if I may ask the question, Eli, do you think that given the times that we are in now, and everyone is aware, do you think that the threshold for using a digital surface to build those strong relationships is lower, so that people are more akin to actually build those relationships through digital now than maybe what they were 2 years ago?
Absolutely. Actually, what is interesting? Back in 20 years ago, when the internet phenomenon became big, there was a very strong thesis that because we are going to be interconnected, we will travel less. But the opposite happened. Right? And now that we are not traveling more, we're going to be, I think, more interconnected virtually. So I agree with you that people are going to be much more comfortable with building trust virtually and dealing with each other virtually, because you don't really have a choice, right?
Exactly. And but
the question is that each and every one is going to have their own way of doing it. In other words, our view is that there's going to be probably 3 or 4 ways that people do it, and then probably one model may become the model. The model that we are trying to figure out is the referencing model, right? Where somebody physically references and does some checks for you, and then you build based on that, right? There could be other models that people will come up with.
I think that one of the main success factors, at least in our relations with MTN, is that we have managed to build almost like friendships with most of the stakeholders, where they have actually said that we feel like we have kind of become friends, and that is, I think, a very, very, very important milestone if you're going to operate in today's business life, especially in the B2B sphere, where trust is basically alpha and omega, because these investments are so big that you need to have that in place. So it's the first success factor you need to have in your mind, is to have that kind of build stronger relationships than just understanding the platform or the product.
But don't forget, you said something which I think you need to place emphasis on. You had a relationship with Telia and a few other operators before you met MTN. MTN definitely did a reference check on that. They won't tell you. They will call Telia guys and say, who are these guys? And I'm sure the Telia guys said, oh yeah, we know this guy, the thing works, we know that so that's a referencing, right? They may not tell you that.
Brought them to a meeting.
Exactly, right? So that was a referencing. So then MTN gets comfortable and says, okay, all right, these guys, Telia knows them, and we know Telia. We have a relation with Telia. We're all mobile operators, right? We know each other. Now, if they say these guys are legit, then let's deal with them. So we think that is going to be one of the frameworks, not the only framework.
I agree. And I actually remember one of the main points in my master thesis, because I wrote a thesis about how to optimize for the success of startups in different regions. And then one of the things there is the main problem for startups is that you have this liability of newness. And this means that you're not really famous for anything. You can't really show any reference. You can't really show any history, right? So even though you have fantastic people, they don't have any history of succeeding in anything. You have that liability of newness. But if you have some sort of institution or a client or someone that can say, yes, these people are fantastic, we work with them, we have done this and this and this, then that's your way in, right?
But Andreas,
yeah, so I have
to
pitch. Sure, go ahead.
I really want to hear also from Andreas. What's the next step for you? You know, you started with MTN. Can you copy it, and where you're heading next? Just for the audience as well, and maybe it could help you here on the references part as well.
Oh, thank you for that question. Yes, of course. So as you know, MTN, as I said, it's a very, very large telco group. So they have many other markets that we desperately want to enter. And this is, of course, the aim. But then Africa is a huge continent where you have many other interesting both telecom companies, but also other companies that sit with enormous amounts of location data that is in many cases just sitting there because they don't have the necessary capabilities to turn this raw data into meaningful and safe insights. And so this is specifically what our platform is doing. So we are hoping that we can replicate many of the learnings that we've had now in these months where we've worked together with MTN, both in scaling inside MTN, but also scaling with other companies, other telcos, and also other companies in Africa.
You know, I'm just thinking about, you know, the basis for everything that you've said. You had the online meetings and the, you know, webinar and all the platforms like the one we're using now. You know, the basis for all of that being able to happen is actually the internet penetration. And it's actually high in East Africa. And is therefore no excuse not to putting your business development plans you know, into action, even though you can't travel. But for example, in Kenya, more than nearly 90% of the population have access to internet, which makes Kenya number 2 in Africa. And I think Libya is on the second place, but it's actually far above, both of them far above the world average, which is just 59%. So it's you know, we have the basis here for doing business digitally, and you both you know, a good example of it being a possibility. So I think that's, but maybe also have a round of you know, if you have some key sort of tips for the audience, how to go about it. Maybe Eric, what would be your, like, I don't know, 3-4 points for takeaways for the audience?
Well, I think that the first is that everybody needs to sort of set up and realize that we're in a new normal, and this new normal means that you got to experiment with a lot of things, right? So you got to think outside the box, or as my friend said, you have to think without the box. That you've been thinking all the time. So take the box away. Very, very important. And it means that you have to be ready to experiment with a lot of things, which means that a lot of things will not work, but you got to keep experimenting and you will get to something that works for you. And when it works for you, you got to double down on it, you got to triple down on it, and then begin to sort of share that experience so that, you know, other people can benefit from it, right? So, so that's the first one. The second, you know, in my view, from an investing, from an entrepreneur, for entrepreneurs, is that this requires you to have a tougher skin. Things are going to be tougher for you as an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is already hard, right? So what you need to understand is that it's going to be tougher for you as an entrepreneur. So you got to be ready to to be a bit more resilient and stay the course. And if you stay the course long enough, things will come around. And then for investors, I think that we need to start thinking about new ways of investing where we are not, you know, sitting down and the deals are coming to you and you're just there as the chief. You know, we got to be a bit more active. We need to be a little bit more think a bit differently about how we do what we do. Luckily for me, I think that my background as an entrepreneur and as somebody who's built businesses, I now saw how relevant that was, because we wouldn't have been able to support all our companies if we didn't have that background. And also, this was deliberate in setting up our firm. So all the partners, we all have operating backgrounds. Apart from Musi, who comes from a pure finance background, and Sewu to some extent, Ian, myself, we built companies and we've been in the venture space for a long time. So that operating experience becomes very relevant. And we think that is going to be a big asset for us going forward, because the operating experience is going to be the cutting edge. We believe that, capital is going to become commoditized. And especially in Africa, if you cannot add value, everybody else can write a check. And that's going to be a key differentiator.
It's good advice. I think that many, are feeling a bit of fatigue. Everything is digital. We want to meet again. We want to travel again. We're getting bored of all the webinars, etc. But I think you also point out very well, Eric, that you just have to be on different platforms now to test out what works for you, and you have to be present and let your voice be heard, and start your pitches, but on different kind of digital platforms. Is that right?
Yes. So, for example, for our Angel Fair event, right, what we do is that we do a boot camp, a physical boot camp. So this year we cannot do the physical boot camp, so we're doing the virtual boot camp. We started actually this week. So we have 14 entrepreneurs, 13. One person dropped out when we started. I think they realized that, look, we can do this stuff. So we have 13 entrepreneurs who every day spend probably 2 hours on Zoom like this with our team and also with the mentors, and they take a class. So you come in, there's a theory, which is PowerPoint presentation. You go through it about 45 minutes to an hour. Then there's questions. Then you're given assignments. Then you do the assignments. Then you're given homework. Then you go home and do it. Then you come back tomorrow and then you submit it. It's quite intensive, right?
It doesn't sound like a vacation, no.
Sorry, say
it
that again.
Doesn't sound like a vacation, no.
No, it doesn't. And the reason is that maybe this will not work, but at least we will know that this model doesn't work, right? And then hopefully we'll try another model. But the thing is that you need to be ready to try a lot of different things around what you do, right? So the Angel Fair event is actually the event itself is going to be virtual, right? So if you go to, for those who are listening, the website for the event is angelfairafrica.com. I'm going to type it in here.
Cool, and we have that one.
And if you're an investor, you want to come, please go on angelfairafrica.com and register. We're partnering with Africa.com, who have a very good virtual platform. So we're going to make it a pretty great experience. We wanted it to feel almost like in a room trying to do deals. So the entrepreneurs are currently in the boot camp preparing feverishly. The good thing is that we got some really good entrepreneurs who also, because of COVID, have been doing a lot of training and getting themselves virtually ready. So on Monday was the first round of, actually Tuesday was the first, pitches that they did to us. And it was quite impressive. It was really, really impressive. We were quite impressed with the entrepreneurs who were ready. They'll pop up their slide, they walk you through it, they answer the questions. And so we feel very optimistic that this may work. And so you're welcome to join us. It's going to be on the 5th of November.
Cool. Andreas will be there, yeah?
I'd love to join. I highly believe in Eric, so I'll have to join.
What about a few tips from you, Andreas?
Yes, I've actually prepared a couple of sentences. Just have in mind, this is not like a recipe for success. It's just the way that I've learned things. Take it for what it is. So number one, I would say that don't ever underestimate the effect of a good first impression. So try to figure out who in your network can give you the optimal amount of the first impression. So I'm talking about the introduction here. And then number two, do never underestimate the power of relationships. And this is the success factor number one in my opinion. Take the time you need to build that relationship before you go too far. Because if you go too far, then it might be too too late in the end. And then number 3, try to really understand what drives your contact and what drives her and what's her objective and how can you genuinely help her reach her objective. And also be patient, because especially when working, especially for us in working with MTN, it is important that we show respect for their internal processes, right? So be patient and just be happy when things go one step further. And then number 5, if you have strong partners with you, do not be afraid to use them for what it's worth, because it really will build your credibility. And then number 6, lead the process if you can, because if you don't, things might take much longer time. So if you can, try to lead the process forward. And the last advice I would have is always be prepared.
That goes in the digital world as well as in the non-digital, right?
Yeah, that goes for life as a whole.
Thank you, Andreas. So, just a few follow-up questions to your really good points here. On relationship, for example, at least here I experienced the emails, very formal, introductory, while quickly you're over to using other platforms, WhatsApp, for example, where you're, more of a chatting, more. Do you use like different type of both digital media to build that trust and relationship?
That's a good question, and the answer is yes. So you use different jargons, if you can say that in English, based on the platform that you're on. So I'm actually chatting on Skype, I'm chatting on WhatsApp, I'm chatting on email with the people of MTN, and it's for some people where the relationship is much further along, we might share even pictures from vacations and stuff. So it's all about building those strong relationships and respect the process. Yeah,
I think also, at least from our experience, you have a different type of social media as well that is worth using, because it's there, it's very giving business updates, for example, or marketing your company. So yeah, using different of the social media platforms, so if it is LinkedIn or WhatsApp or stuff like that, is absolutely, you own those yourself, so it's possible to expand on that. Also, thought I'd throw in, with all the digital events, we're very much used to using, Zoom or this Hop-on platform or Google Meet or whatever you use. But there is a few other solutions as well. I don't know if you heard about, for example, Conferer, which is a one-to-one, is designed for one-to-one customer relationship. So tailored to business that offer services, also consulting via video. And you have another one, for example, VREX, which brings 3D models into virtual reality. So a tool that is, particularly useful for complex engineering and that type of things. So I'm just saying that there are so many platforms out there, and some of them are really niche, that could be really good for your kind of business. So explore more of those platforms that are available than just using, I don't know, Teams and Zoom and the ones everyone knows, I suppose. So that is also maybe a tip that could be brought along. And also, as I mentioned in the beginning, I think both of you have talked about using the network and utilizing that, and of course remembering your embassies and Innovation Norway and NABA, and you have a lot of actors around you that everyone is cheering for your business to develop and the goals to be reached. So and I think that now it's like everyone is in the same boat. So also reaching out to people that you haven't met physically, or large companies that you need for opening a door for you. Everyone is more, yeah, we'll do it for you. It's a shift in mentality, I think, that is very positive as well in the situation we're in. I think we're getting closer to the end, but maybe just if you have a few words from each of you, last famous few words. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anyone else does, then if you have a few questions or comments, then just type in. And of course, I'm sure that both Andreas and Eric will be available later as well if you reach out to them and have some questions directly to you. But a few last comments on going virtual, the new normal for business.
I just want to say thank you guys for a great conversation. And also, if there are anyone in the audience that would like to talk about me regarding our journey with MTN or our journey elsewhere in the world, or if there's someone sitting in a company right now that has enormous amounts of location data and you need to have a company that can help you with that, please contact me.
What about you, Eric?
Well, so I'll follow Andreas and say that, yes, if you want to figure out how to invest in the new normal in Africa, probably talk to us. I'll put our website there as well. We're trying to experiment as we go, so we don't know it all, but we know the lay of the land. So hopefully we can be useful. And I want to take the opportunity to invite also those who want to come for Angel Fair Africa event. It's going to be on the 5th of November. The website is www.angelfairafrica.com. I also put it in the chat. Go on there, register, and join us, and hopefully we can make deals happen virtually.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Andreas and Eric. Very interesting conversation. I learned a lot, and it was a pleasure trying to guide you through this. I think that I could have stayed on and chatted for some more time. But thank you guys for great input. So I'll think.
Thank you for leading the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cheers, Eric. We'll see you around, both of you.